Hey everyone, this is Tony and John, bringing you Kings Talk, presented by Cap City Crown. It's been a week since we've last talked. In that stretch, the Kings have gone 3-1, the win over the Lakers, OKC, a loss to the Sixers, and then a win on Monday night. Not even a win, just like a total, like a slack down of the Memphis Grizzlies, winning by 33, 12 threes in the first. It was a dominating victory. So, I mean, shoot, the Kings in the last 2 weeks, the Kings have gone, 7-1, 8-7, have won 7 of the last 8. So things are looking good in Sacramento. John, how are we feeling?
That win on Monday was interesting because it felt like it took on a lot of the characteristics of what this team will often do in the context of doing good things. Because that game was not a blowout from like in the first half. Like it was a very close game at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And then they closed out the game on like a 34-4 run or something.
I mean, I think Memphis only scored 10 points in that fourth.
It was some crazy stretch. I don't remember the exact stretch off the top of my head, but it was like 34-4 in like the final like 8 minutes of the game or something.
Jeez. Well, they only scored 33 in the 10th. Surprisingly.
Well, okay. It was like 30-4 or something.
Yeah. It was
a lot. It was like you said, it was a beatdown. And I don't know what it is, but it just seems like when this team's doing well, they're doing it because of their halftime adjustments, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Everything just kind of tightens up. It's really, really, really impressive to watch.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that game against Memphis was just a total beatdown. And what was nice about that win as well was that even without John Morant and Steven Adams, which is kind of like, well, you should win that game. Well, guess what? 2 days before, you lose to the Sixers at home without Embiid and Harden, which should, be an easier win maybe. Because I know Memphis plays well without Morant in the past. So you're like, it's like, okay, good, Morant and Adams are out, but it's like, all right, you can't lose this one too. Because Saturday night's loss against the Sixers after being up 21 at one point, it's kind of like the Kings just ran out of gas. It was the second of a back-to-back, so it's like that's like the one excuse I'll give them. But it was nice coming out on Monday, even without, I want to say their two best players, but definitely their best player, and then a guy who killed us last time on the offensive glass and Steven Adams. They took care of business big time. And I think the Kings set their season high in rebounding on Monday night. So Steven Adams' absence did definitely make an impact for the Kings.
That's very important to note, the absence of those two players.
Yeah, they beat the second seed in the West by 33.
But it's still, the second half adjustments, man, they're incredible.
They were. I mean, like you said, that game was close at the half.
And I think the biggest catalyst behind that win was the energy with which the bench played with. Lyles scored 24 points, which was a game high. But at the same time, it's going after loose balls, running up the floor. He's hustling 100%. Richaun Holmes coming in with energy. Davion Mitchell doing what he does with his effort on the defensive end and basically kind of being the head of the snake when he's in there, as Mike Brown likes to say. That provides an energy too. But beneath it all, the real difference, the big eruption here was Malik Monk. And he is the lone guy on the bench who has the ability to single-handedly uplift the whole unit. Because, and I think we've said this before kind of in reference to Metu, like when Metu does well, it's usually because he's just one of the boats on the water and the water's rising because of Malik Monk or something. And we've seen over the last couple of weeks, like Trey Lyles has played really well. But while he helps and he's, ridiculously productive on both ends of the floor, he doesn't have that same effect that Monk does in helping the whole bench. Davion Mitchell, in terms of what he does on defense, he's probably one of the most consistent players on the team, just looking at that at the end of the floor. But still, that doesn't necessarily always drive up the whole bench unit. And the backup five is usually reliant on whether or not the whole bench unit is kind of rolling. And Malik Monk, as he did on Monday night against the Grizzlies, he went off. He was fantastic, almost had a triple-double off the bench, and was hitting shots, was continuing to facilitate, but like at an added level. He was on the boards like nobody's business. And just you see how much that puts them over the top. Can he sustain this? Can he keep this going?
He's the definition of a streaky player, right? Like if he's going to be making his shots, he's going to be doing that on a consistent basis, and we saw that earlier on this season. And this is like his first really big slump, and that's just how it is with streaky players. And so now that we see he had a good game on Monday night, 13, 9, and 8 off the bench, I think that it can give you a lot of promise because it's like, all right, this is a streaky guy. So if he has a good game, he's maybe feeling it again, right? And I think a good thing. We saw him hit, I think, how many threes did he hit on Monday? Do you remember? Did he hit two?
Was he like 2 of 4, maybe 2 of 5?
And I think that's huge. I think he's feeling that shot again. But I'm not saying he's going to play like this the rest of the year because he's a streaky guy. So maybe he'll play well until February or so and then go in a slump in March. And it's just kind of the nature of those kind of guys, unfortunately. But for the immediate future, we can maybe see Monk kind of get back to the swing of things. But there's probably going to be another slump in this season, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I just know that we talk about like who are the top 5 players on this team. I feel like the top 4 are pretty set in stone, and they're all in the starting lineup. And then it's kind of like between the rookie and Monk for 5th, maybe. But it almost feels like lately, because Monk's really played himself out of that conversation. But when he is your 5th best player, like, man, but I don't even know if we've really seen this team fire on all cylinders really yet. That's all.
Everyone just got it going.
Yeah, and and just the importance of Monk, just kind of tying into that. We'll have to see what he does going forward because he is so important.
Mm-hmm.
But we got the deadline coming up, so there's a lot to talk about still. I mean, some new stuff, some stuff to be kind of redundant about. But first of all, it's interesting. As we noted, Richaun Holmes, he got a double-double when he started for Domantas Sabonis. He played really well. Metu has his injury against... That was against
Philadelphia.
And Holmes comes in for second half relief of Sabonis, plays pretty well. And Holmes played very nicely against the Grizzlies in terms of rebounding and energy. He was terrific. And Mark Stein reported, I think Monday or Tuesday, that other teams are kind of looking at Holmes as a potential buyout candidate, which is essentially to say that they either think his contract's too high or that the Kings' asking price is too high and that they're not going to be able to trade him. And now that doesn't necessarily mean that the Kings are actually thinking about doing that. Because if the Kings can't trade him, if they're not able to make a move that involves Holmes, it kind of feels safe to say that would mean that they didn't get a deal done at the backup 5 at least. So what would they stand to gain by doing a buyout with Richaun Holmes? Right? I mean...
Yeah, nothing. You don't buy out Holmes. I don't know why. I mean, I get it. Maybe, save cap space for the offseason.
Well, I don't even think that affects the cap. I think the money would still go towards the cap in some way. I think with this, if I read that correctly.
Oh, well then
they'd just save money in terms of like they wouldn't have to pay. Like they just save, the organization would save cash.
Yeah, well then I guess the only person to gain out of that would be Vivek, right? So I mean I don't see this as a realistic move regardless. Like you said, if you don't trade Holmes, it's because there is no suitor for him, at least, giving a reasonable offer. I mean, if someone offered you 2 second rounders for Holmes, would you trade him? But again, okay, wait, before I even ask that, because it is very dependent on if you have a backup center. Because
that's an important piece that I did not really mention. Because right now, I don't know how long Metu's going to be out. It's a bone bruise.
He was questionable for Memphis, so I mean, maybe. He's questionable. I mean, maybe a week tops, you would think. I mean, he's not out. So you think he missed maybe a game or two? Maybe come back?
And he might not even come back and play well.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, he was playing pretty well before he got hurt. Now, of course, I still think that they should try to get an upgrade there, but this is all under the scenario that they can't. And so you might very well need Holmes. And just based off his last 3 appearances, he's played well. And it's like we've said this before. So you don't want to get ahead of yourself. But also really interesting after the Laker game, Mike Brown said the guy's been dealing with stuff that you wouldn't wish upon anybody off the court, which is making mention of his debacle at the end of last season. And it was the first time, to my knowledge, it was the first time that anybody really mentioned off the court matters for Holmes, out of the organization. Holmes himself said ahead of training camp that everything was behind him. As expected, it's just like you don't expect athletes to tell 100% of the truth, especially when it comes to their personal lives. Like, what do you expect them to say there? So it was always a possibility that could have been lingering, but it never really got brought up. And it just kind of, well, I guess that's behind him. And then Mike Brown mentioned that. And it's just like, well, if he's been going on with that, then there's still a ton of hope that he can tie things together. I mean, it never seemed like he didn't want to figure it out. I mean, he was so pumped after the Laker game. There's so much, he was so invigorated. It just seemed like he needed something like that. And I don't know, since that game, he's played pretty decently. And again, it's a game and a half essentially since that start that he's played as of now. But like we're kind of saying on this buyout topic, it's like the Kings might need him. And if he plays like this, he has some pretty good defensive moments. He got a block where he kind of went straight up. It kind of looked like he could have been called for a foul, but it just seemed like he got the ball more than anything. But his defense is coming around. Like, things just seem like they're a little better. And it just, I mean, you hate to just leave it at like, man, that'd be a shot in the arm. Wouldn't that be great? But it would be.
It would be. I still don't know how to feel about Holmes. I'm less likely to get excited over the idea that he can be that backup center we would hope, or we were hoping he'd be coming into the season. That's because he's had the job twice and he's lost it twice now, right? Regardless of off-court matters or not. And yeah, he had a big game against the Lakers as a starter. He was a starter in that situation. He has not really looked good off the bench. But he always looked good as a starter, hence why he got that contract, right? I mean, you hope he can turn it around. But again, at the same time, you can't trade him. You can't leave Metu and Lin as your only backups. If the Kings, make the playoffs, which it looks like they probably will at this rate. So if you can get a backup center and you're able to trade Holmes, I think that's the right move. But mostly for the contract and the way he's been playing, of course. Like, you hope he can get out of it and maybe you can get back to it next year. I mean, who's to say? But you can also cut $11 million off the books if you trade him. So, it's just really dependent on that backup center. If you can grab maybe a Mason Plumlee, maybe a Nerlens Noel, I don't know.
You bring up a good point there, because that's kind of getting away from the buyout talk. Just looking at that LA start, that was a hell of an advertisement. We always kind of like that was the big narrative coming in, which made it so great that he was going to be the backup. It's like you have two starting caliber centers, but then it ended up being you just have an MVP candidate and someone that doesn't want to be a backup, or doesn't not. It's not that he doesn't want to be a backup. It's just maybe it's a rhythm thing. Take the last game and a half out of it. He's been terrible as a backup. You make a great point, but the hell of an advertisement in terms of being able to trade him. And that again, like we mentioned about the buyout talk, it's almost like it just seems like one of those rumors that comes out to kind of try to like whittle down the value. Maybe it just seems like almost hearing that you're almost prone to think like, oh, there are chatterings going on about Holmes. They're talking about Holmes. People want Holmes, and I don't know. It's interesting. It almost seems like you could definitely look at it and say that things are going down that path. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things to look at here, but I don't think that the Kings are going to come to an agreement with Holmes to buy out his contract.
No, I think that's the less likely thing. I think the most likely thing is that they're going to keep him. I didn't know if they can get a backup center, and then if you can't get a backup center, you got to keep Holmes, right? But so then the trade would be the second, and then buying out. I mean, that just should be so low. It doesn't benefit the Kings whatsoever. Just might as well keep him at that point.
But if you could move the $11 million, I mean, hell, that's an interesting situation all of a sudden. If you do have a backup center coming in as well, that's maybe less expensive. You got a little bit of money to work with because the possibility that this team makes one or two trades it's there. I don't know what's going to happen by the trade deadline, but the other area obviously is kind of like the wing, and I feel like we talk about it every week. Where we're just like, yeah, there's no viable options, but we have more people that are not viable options.
While while we were recording this, the Kings, and as I say Kings, I say the Stockton Kings. They actually signed Josh Jackson,
I saw that.
who was on the Kings last year, and we got him from the Pistons with Lyles, and well, that was it. But we also got DiVincenzo in that trade. So Josh Jackson, I mean, I don't know if he's here. I don't know if he's going to be in the back of three. But I don't know, maybe. I think that's everyone with Josh Jackson. He was number 4 overall pick right before De'Aaron Fox in the 2017 draft. And so that alone, gives people a lot of hope. And it's like, yeah, he has potential. Again, that was 6 years ago, and he's been bouncing around teams ever since. So I don't know if he's the option, but I don't know. Just like every other team probably said when they got Josh Jackson in the last 4 years, like, yeah, maybe. So I guess we can see with him.
It'd be interesting. I mean, like, it'd be a really good story. Whenever Josh Jackson went out there late last year, it was always just like, I never rooted so hard for a guy.
Right.
Come on, Josh.
I agree. Especially with him on the Kings. Like, yeah. Make your home here.
Rocking that white chocolate number.
I know he did, huh?
Well, it's interesting that they just picked him up because it's just like, like Mo Harkless is a free agent, I think.
I forgot about Mo Harkless already.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that I thought he was just on the Hawks the whole time, but I guess he got traded from there long ago, and then I think he got cut. But maybe bring in Mo Harkless. No. I don't know. He's what, 29, 28?
Mo Harkless?
I don't know.
Is he only? He's 29? Oh my god! I feel like this guy's been in the league for like 40 seasons.
Well, that's pretty old. That's like 9 years in the league right there. If you're 29,
I would have guessed 35. But yeah, he started at 19. Yeah, so it's his. I think his 10th season right here. That's crazy. Well, he hasn't played a game yet. I can't believe we had him for like a year and a half. It was a big trade. We got him from the Heat with 2 other guys. I forget their names. I don't even know who they were. Nobodies. But yeah, the wing position. It's just, I mean, we kind of talked about it last week. Jalen McDaniels, maybe. And then who's the other guy? I already forget. Who's the other wing guy that you wrote about?
Cam Reddish.
Cam Reddish.
Would that'd be like, I think you have more hope with Josh Jackson. No offense.
I was gonna say Cam Reddish kind of reminds me of Josh Jackson, like higher draft pick, lottery pick, where it's like he came out of the draft. It's like, man, this guy could be good. And it just hasn't panned out. But he's like, it's always like, Cam Reddish is a little younger than Josh Jackson. He got drafted with Zion's year, so I think 2 years after.
I immediately take back what I said because I was just thinking about it. I'm just like,
Reddish still has more potential. Like Reddish is like. Josh Jackson's a little removed from like, yeah, just if he just finds the perfect fit.
Reddish has the physical assets too. He's long. He could be a good defender. I think he just needs to understand his role in the league, that he's never going to be the guy that everybody thought he was going to be.
Yeah, that's very true.
It just sounds like it takes a cursory research on this guy to figure out that he's just kind of overhyped coming out of high school, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
That's how a lot of people will summarize it. Willing to be corrected on that, but it just doesn't seem like he's found a rhythm being the guy he thinks he is. And it's just like, dude, you could be so good if you just set to a particular role. And while I think that, that would be great for the Kings to try that, it just seems like the guy's going into a contract year. I don't think he's going to try to go in there and do that. You might lose him. It might just end up being nothing. It's not worth it at all. If you were going to do that with anybody, you'd do it with McDaniels, I feel like, because that guy's He's like the perfect example of a guy that just kind of like found a role and stuck to it, just kind of being that defensive guy that runs the floor, cuts, hits open threes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Cam
Yeah.
Reddish just seems like antithetical to. I mean, like the idea of chemistry gets brought up a lot, and it just seems like Cam Reddish, you're just gonna throw him in there. I mean, like he might do well with them. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the on floor chemistry would be great.
No, I agree. I think the Kings are at a spot where, yeah, there are a couple players away still from being that real championship contender, or just Fox really becoming like an elite player, like a 30 point a game kind of guy. But it's like, other than that, like the Kings just need solid role players around them, and you see that with the starting lineup and sub. I mean, Herter, Murray, and Barnes are playing like elite role players so far this season. Murray, especially in the last month and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you need those guys off the bench. Trey Lyles, great role player. Davion Mitchell, great role player. Malik Monk, I mean, I wouldn't say he's as much of a role player as the other guys, where he has more freedom in what he does. But yeah, I mean, like you said, chemistry. I think Cam Reddish is a guy who would try to do too much and throw off that chemistry and not play within his assigned role. Or Jalen McDaniels, we can get a Jalen McDaniels in Sacramento, a guy who's going to know his role and play good defense. That's what the Kings kind of need right now. So I totally get what you're saying, and he's a
Yeah.
smarter pickup and a guy who would fit this team and culture a lot better.
But I don't know that you'd be able to retain him because that guy would get a pretty nice deal.
Yeah,
He's
he would.
long. He's the exact guy that every team wants. Every team wants that. You want to be like Memphis, that's super long and like it just has all sorts of different guys handling the ball and being long and disruptive out there, or something like that. You try to get guys like McDaniels,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's the only issue with it. It's like, hey, dude, you want to just come here and play for like dimes on the dollar?
Yeah, I know
Of
you would
course
hope.
not.
Man, I know.
But I mean, like, it's obviously those small moves, but it just seems so limited in terms of who's the like. I think Robert Covington would technically be somebody, but he's like 32 and making like $12 million a year and hasn't played really a lot this season. I don't know. There's like the bigger names, I guess. Talking about a lot of people want the Kings to go after like OG Anunoby, but as has been kind of the case since the interest rumor broke a couple of months ago. It's just like Kings are not gonna. They don't have a first round pick to give them. I don't see how they're gonna. They'd have to give up maybe like Keegan Murray and Davion Mitchell, and maybe something else, and maybe have a chance at it. But it just seems like with a lot of these trade rumors, it's just like the asking price just never comes down on a lot of them, and then nothing happens.
Yeah, and like great point. That's just kind of where the Kings are. Like with the Kings, we can't talk about those big name players because the Kings don't have anything to give away. They don't have any good trade pieces. Like I said, their trade pieces, realistically, of who the Kings would be willing to give away at this point, would be Holmes. I mean, I don't even really want to say Trey Lyles anymore. I really like Trey Lyles. I kind of hope you try to resign him in the
Trey
offseason.
Lyles, we're talking about guys that are kind of like versatile and long. I mean, he's not a wing, but like in terms of versatility, his ability to play inside and out, his defensive ability, that's a guy that you want him on your bench. Like if you can somehow retain him, you do it because he's vital.
Yeah, he is vital. And so outside of him, even though he's on a contract year, you want to resign him. You want to retain him this year, so you have the chance to resign him in the offseason. So you got Holmes, you have Terrence Davis, and then like I wouldn't even count like Alex Lynn or like I guess
That would just be for like get the
yeah,
money right.
exactly. So your two big attractions are Holmes and Davis, and then I guess second round picks, and then if you need salary fillers like Metu or Akpala, would you be willing to trade Metu? Actually, I don't even know if Metu is even tradable.
I mean, I would be if I'm Monte McNair in if I'm in McNair, Wes Wilcox, and Mike Brown's in a room with them, I'm saying yeah, you should trade Metu if you can. But
Yeah,
I just don't think that that's going to happen.
I don't either.
They'd have to get. a guy that could be their backup 5 for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Just seems like I feel like that trust factor is always going to keep Metu around with Mike Brown.
Okay, and I have big news right now. Sorry, breaking news. It is Tuesday for us. The Kings have just extended Monte McNair.
Oh my God!
So it says Sacramento is also working to finalize a contract extension with assistant GM Wes Wilcox. So
Speak of the devil.
Yes.
Wow, it's 3:32 on a Tuesday afternoon. Wow, that's fun. Well, that happened. A lot of people were wondering when that was gonna go down, and it happened in January. Mark Stein was right.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, you're talking about coming in January. Great. I mean, good. You needed to extend Monte McNair, and they've done it.
That's crazy. Well, that was a long time coming.
Yeah.
That guy is the central figure behind everything that's different with this team. Obviously, you got Mike Brown, you got different players that are really doing the work on the floor, but Monte McNair is the composer of this orchestra, and it's making pretty music right now. I think he deserves this more than anybody.
I mean, at this point, Monte has to be like almost the front runner for that GM of the year, right? He has to. The third seed, the Kings, with some good drafting Murray and signing Herter or trading for Herter and signing Monk in the offseason. I mean, those are executive of the year moves right there. Big time.
And so it's interesting because it's just like, man, like good for him. It's just like it was a couple of months ago. You and I were sitting across from my uncle, and he's just like, so is Vlade Divac still over there in Sacramento running things? I'm like, nope. This guy named Monte McNair. Who?
Yeah, exactly.
Monte McNair. What's his name? So it's nice that he's going to have some recognition.
Yes. He deserves he deserves all the recognition, and hats off to Vivek for extending this man. Don't know what took so long, but it happened, and we just have to be happy about it, really.
Yes. Now, what was the holdup?
I don't know. It's just
is there some tax thing or something?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm like, is it something
he wanted to write it off in his 2023 taxes?
I don't know. Like, why the 24th of January? Why Tuesday? Were they waiting to get to a certain win total?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean,
what are they at? 20,
27 and 19?
Are they 27?
Yeah. Maybe it was got to be a certain games ahead in third place. You're a game and a half. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not just throwing things. I'm just spitballing here. But I don't know. Long time coming. It'd be interesting to know why. I think that's definitely what you pivot to here.
Yeah, what took so long in this?
Mm-hmm. Because this was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
We've been kind of anticipating this. It's just like, now it's just like, what took so long?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just doesn't make any sense why it would have taken long. It is odd.
Well, you know what I just thought about? Because everybody was pointing to the Daryl Morey tweet where he was like, gotta show up and do it in person to get the deal done or something. And everybody was like, oh, and it's just like, that's just fun that they did that because they're buddies. Obviously, they go way back. But it had like the Moneyball picture, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, that means they're going to make a trade. And like, as people quickly figured out in Twitter comments and online rhetoric and stuff like that, it's like, oh, there really isn't. I don't think anybody has anything to offer to each other there. But now I'm like thinking like, did that have anything to do with his contract? It's a couple days removed now, and I don't know why it would, but it's just like it's kind of kind of like Godfather of Monte McNair, you know?
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
So they made him a made man, so he had to be there for like a ceremony or something. I mean, what was that? How long was the extension? That's another
I
question.
don't see any. I don't see any.
It probably align with. Does it align with Mikey Brown?
What's up, Mikey Brown? I don't know. Let me see. You'd hope so. I don't see any timeline of a deal.
Well,
It'll probably come out later, unfortunately.
so keep an eye out for that. If you don't know off the top of your head, if you're listening to this, hopefully that news will have broken by then. The specifics of the deal, which I will imagine come out in the next hour. We might be able to get that in here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah.
Guy's done a great job.
I mean, when he took over the Kings, they were on what, a 14-year playoff drought, and just hadn't. I mean, the big thing Monte has done, other than drafting, was choosing a direction for this team. Because for so long they were in that purgatory of sucking too bad to get a high draft pick, but or sucking too bad to make the playoffs, but being a little too good to get like a top 3 or 4 draft pick. And shit, Monte chose that direction and still got both, right? And they might make the playoffs this year, and they got a 4th overall, or they'll probably make the playoffs this year, and they got the 4th overall pick. So, I mean, just trading for Sabonis was huge, and just choosing a direction. They could have tanked, they could have gone for a big name like they did, but they're just like going somewhere instead of just being in that hell. So, Kings are just reaping the rewards now off of it. They're gonna break their 16-year playoff drought, and it's all thanks to this man. He's been fantastic.
Monte McNair is just going to trade Sabonis and Fox and a bunch of guys to Philadelphia, keep the money, and just sabotage the Kings. That'd be a hell of a storyline,
dude. But huge signing. Good job, Vivek. That's it. That's all I got.
I mean, I guess Viva, you better. Why take so long?
Yeah.
But I guess we won't see Vivek's daughter be the GM anytime soon.
That's a bummer. We'd be in the first seed. She was our GM.
Seriously, man. That's ridiculous. I don't know. It just goes under the radar. But kind of going off of McNair's kind of off season of getting like Herter and Monk, it was interesting that the Lakers got Rui Hachimura hours after it broke that the Kings had interest in getting Hachimura. And it kind of that Wizards-Lakers connection. Remember, it's almost kind of reversed roles here, where they made a deal that left out the Kings. But it's also notable that the Lakers wanted to re-sign Malik Monk, and Malik Monk came to Sacramento. And also that the Lakers were interested in trying to acquire Kevin Herter, but the Kings ended up getting Kevin Herter. I would almost say that the Kings have kind of bested the Lakers. I mean, getting Hachimura was cool. That would have been interesting if the Kings would have gotten him. I don't know how that would work because I always kind of envisioned him more as a power forward than like a small forward or like a wing. But he's a long, athletic player and kind of in the positionless aspect of basketball. I mean, he's going to be a commodity in this league. I mean, he already is. And the Lakers are talking about keeping him long term, obviously. So a good pickup for them. But it would have been interesting to see him on the Kings. I don't know what that deal would have looked like or how realistic that deal was to even happening, considering that news broke right before the Lakers pulled the trigger on it. But you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, not really. I mean, Rui Hachimura, I liked him. He wasn't like a guy at the top of my list. Like, yeah, he probably could have helped out the Kings. Again, I don't know what like you said, the trade would have looked like for him. I think you mentioned that he was traded for 2 second-rounders and Kendrick Nunn, so maybe 2 second-rounders and Terrence Davis. But yeah, I kind of see him more as a power forward too. Man, he'd be a good guy off the bench, but maybe you can plug him in at that small forward position behind Barnes. But I don't know. He would have been good to help us out, but.
I mean, if you're flipping him for Davis, you're getting more length. You're definitely going to be able to utilize him more.
What's his contract?
I think it's expiring, right? Isn't he on a? Well, how long is he? End of his rookie deal, I guess. But I think the Lakers are looking to extend him. So We'll
Yeah,
see. It's probably I don't know what he's going to get paid. That would be the question.
I think he's going to
probably.
be the same thing as Jalen McDaniels at this point. Like, if you trade for him, you probably won't be able to retain him. So I think that's
Yeah, I
kind of
think
just
that's
like the
definitely
same road,
yeah.
right? It's just like,
I think it's even more the case
yeah,
because Hachimura is worth way more than McDaniels.
yeah, I think so. So you probably definitely are getting Hachimura in the offseason. So it's like, that's why I just like, whatever. Like, I don't think he was really ever like the reports came out like the Kings are interested in him, but it's like, why wouldn't they be
They're
needing a
interested in
wing
OG
player?
Anunoby.
Yeah,
They're interested in all
exactly,
these
exactly.
motherfuckers.
It's like you kind of have to be, but again, I never really expected the Kings to make that trade or
Yeah,
obtain him. It's just
yeah.
kind of same thing for like the Jalen McDaniel situation we already explained. It's just you probably won't be able to re-sign him. So I give 2 second rounders for a rental for a team that's still not built to really make a really deep playoff run.
I mean, you could feasibly. I mean, I don't know. You could maybe if you could move. He wouldn't be able to keep. You wouldn't be able to keep a lot of guys with him. But if you would have been able to trade for Hachimura, I do think that the Kings would have been able to maybe retain him because he has that. There's actual like reason to want to keep him, like to maybe like step up to take him. But you'd lose. You definitely wouldn't be keeping Lyles. You'd definitely be losing a lot of financial flexibility, and you'd probably have to jump through some hurdles to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So it just would have been like it would have almost been like one of those situations where it's like, oh, we'll see where this goes. Which kind of brings us to another topic because in terms of like, oh, where would this go? One of the things that a lot of people say, and some people say this was in the context of what we were just laying out, which was that there's not a ton of options out there for the Kings. Therefore, but then there's also some people out there that are just like, no, the Kings should just not mess with the chemistry, which is the point people come to a lot, which is viable. We saw that report earlier in the season. Like the Kings are not interested in trading Harrison Barnes and they want to focus on keeping the chemistry. If the validity of that is to be taken for what it is, that would kind of go for the team at large. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like there's an argument, I guess, to be made, probably more in the context of the idea that there's not a ton of options in terms of trade candidates, or at least not visible to us on the outside. There's viability in the argument that the Kings should focus on chemistry more than being aggressive, which is probably more the characterization than just going out and making a trade. It's whether or not the Kings want to be aggressive. Because if the options are low, that means the necessary level of aggression needs to be higher, right? So, I mean, there's a huge argument to be made that, well, if you have to be aggressive to make a move, that might screw with one of the things that you really have going here. I don't know. Could the Kings be put in a position where they just can't be making a move or shouldn't be making a move? I don't know. How do you see some of that?
I mean, I think chemistry is an important piece of winning, right? And the Kings have good chemistry. So, yeah, you don't want to make a move that would hurt the chemistry, kind of like we were talking about with Cam Reddish, where it's like, yeah, Cam Reddish might be able to help out as that backup 3, but it's like he's a guy who can ruin that chemistry. Like maybe those locker room cancers, maybe just a guy that doesn't know his role. I think a guy who knows his role, like that Jalen McDaniels, I think that's why we're talking about like Jalen McDaniels so much. It's like he's a guy I wouldn't mind bringing over, and he would improve this team and not mess up the chemistry. But you don't want to get a guy. Well, I mean, if you're not improving the chemistry or at least keeping it the same, then are you really improving the team, right? So, I mean,
True.
Maybe Cam Reddish. I don't know. It's just kind of weird because it's like I just don't see him fitting well in to the team, which would just ruin the chemistry and the team at the same time. So they obviously go hand in hand, but you definitely have to keep that in mind because the Kings they have a good culture going right now under Mike Brown, and you can't mess that up. We've seen stuff happen in the past. I mean, look at the Hawks right now. Like getting DeJounte Murray. I think everyone thought it was just going to be like, oh, or even like the Timberwolves, not to skip my point so quick. And I know these teams are kind of like doing a little better than they were at the start of the season. But just getting a big name doesn't mean you're going to start winning right away, right? Or win at all. Sometimes, or not sometimes. I mean, chemistry is a big factor. And like I said, no, like the Kings are in much more need of role players and people who know their role to a T than probably like a big splash or like a guy who will ruin up what they got going in Sac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge factor. I guess it's just like one of those things where, again, it's like it's just the prevailing factor, because if you can't make a move, you can't make a move. I mean, the thing is, though, it's like if they can somehow just add a guy and not make anything major, not like trade a guy that's already in the rotation as a staple piece in the rotation, but just get a guy that you can maybe squeeze in there. I mean, that could be useful, but it's like all about how feasible and realistic it is. And at this point, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it is. I don't know how active the Kings are going to be at the trade deadline. And I think the thing that people will come to is just, and I guess it'd be kind of almost a PR narrative. It's just like, we're just well, you know what we traded for? We traded for more chemistry. I don't know. It just, that just seems like the way it's going, at least right now. 2 weeks. What, 2 weeks? A little more than 2 weeks out from the deadline, February 9th.
I think at the end of this, Kings are very they need to get some players, but they're just very limited in what they can do at this trade deadline. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if no moves were made. And at the end of the day, you need to bring in chemistry guys or role players. That's what they can afford right now, and that's what they need to win. You can worry about maybe getting a big name in the offseason where you have a whole training camp and preseason to build that chemistry together. But right now, you're not looking for any big splashes. You're looking for role players, chemistry guys.
But I mean, it's just, again, it's like, it'd be, I guess, I can talk about it as Mason Plumlee. It's just like, that they're trying to move him. He'd be the one guy that you're pretty much okay with getting maybe for just a half a season rental. It seems like if anybody's going to come here, it's going to be him.
Yeah, he makes the most sense. And just how closely he resembles Sabonis's game as a backup center, it just makes the most sense. He's going to come in. He's going to be a pro. He's going to know his role. And so that's why it just makes sense. Even if it's just a half-season rental, it's also the position the Kings need the most. The most support in is that backup five role. So it does make. I mean, maybe just because it just makes the most sense, we can see it like, okay, like we're okay with this. And at the same time, I think you can get him for like maybe a couple second rounders and a Terrence Davis and an Alex Len, right? Like, it's like guys you wouldn't mind giving up because Terrence Davis is in a contract year, and I don't know. I've never really cared too much about second rounders, so Plumlee would be a big pickup. It would definitely bolster this team's depth a little more, because that backup five has just been a really big hole. So it would be interesting to see how much better the Kings could get with a pretty solid backup five.
True. I don't know. Is there anything else to talk about with the trade deadline? I mean, I feel like
I just don't think there's too much. I just think with how limited the Kings are and what they can trade, and just that obviously limits names we can reasonably talk about, and those names are kind of guys who are in contract years already. It's just hard to really talk about it until we hear more rumors really on who the Kings are interested in. Or maybe they are looking for a bigger name. It's just hard to really go into too much depth on it. They're just so limited at this point.
Yeah, and again, this might be conjecture, but it's like I was thinking about the fact, prior to him actually getting the extension a second ago, I was thinking about, well, maybe they're waiting to give Monte McNair a contract extension. They're waiting until after the trade deadline, to do that. So again, conjecture here. It's maybe that's kind of a sign that they don't want to do anything. I don't know. I wouldn't buy into that, but it's interesting. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's out there. Like a ton of options are out there. Something could happen, but I almost wouldn't bet money on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Again, it's like one move could happen.
I could see it. Yeah. I mean, I could. I mean, the best case scenario, you get Mason Plumlee. You know, the worst case scenario, you get. I mean, I'm going to say worst case. Worst case scenario, you just like trade away if it's a bonus, right? But,
trade away Keegan Murray. I can't believe that's a topic. I'm just like, I don't think he's on the table. No, the way Mike Brown talks about that guy, like he really thinks that guy's going to be a two-way star, and he's got all the makings for it. This guy's got touch on offense. He's got length on defense. That would be probably worst case, moving him or something. Like in terms of something that people are actually talking about. Of course, Sabonis would be that'd be insane. Yeah, we just tried him out for a year.
Yeah, we told him we want to be in first place by January 24th.
So we got Miles Turner instead.
Oh my God! Imagine trading Sabonis for Miles Turner straight up. But yeah, that's all I got on the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's like, at least for right now. We'll follow up next week. Something could definitely break. The Hachimura thing it's kind of interesting on Monday. Those rumors come out. It's like, oh, it's something to write about. It's like, oh, never mind. But anything can happen. Anything can change. But kind of moving on to a less King-centric topic to kind of close out here. I was watching that 49ers and Dallas game where the 49ers beat the dreaded Cowboys. And Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson, which I cannot flip and believe that they're doing the Super Bowl.
Are they? They're doing the Super Bowl.
Fox has the Super Bowl this year, and they're there. That's their primetime. That's what Joe Buck and Troy Aikman used to be last season.
Yeah, until they left for ESPN.
Yes, which is like the geriatric booth because both those guys are getting kind of up there. And so they wanted to go younger. So they were talking though, and I think like Elijah Mitchell had just had a handoff because he was finally being used in the second half, and I think Kevin Burkhardt almost said Donovan Mitchell, and he's like, "Oh, I almost said Donovan Mitchell," and like him and Greg Olson were saying like, "Oh, how do you think he would do as a running back in this league?" Like, "Oh, he would do great." I'm just sitting there going, "No, he wouldn't." As a running back in the NFL, probably be done after a quarter. Like, I tell you who would be a good running back. The other Mitchell, Davion Mitchell. That guy would be built to be a running back. And it just like got me thinking, I'm like, who would be, not necessarily for the NFL, but it's like, who on the Kings would be an athlete in another sport, you know? Because you have like Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray says that if he didn't play basketball, he'd be a lefty pitcher, even though he only played like up until like the beginning of high school or something like that. He didn't even play that deep. So it's not even like he knows he has the arm for it or anything like that. Like, I think he admits that he didn't even throw that fast. But he's like, yeah, I'd figure it out. I'd do it. Which is just such an interesting thing about Keegan Murray. But that's also a factor, though. It's like mindset, like, you know. But physical, too, probably is the thing that stands out.
Basketball, I think, is one of those sports where it's like, if you're good at basketball, you could probably be good in like a lot of other sports because it's not just so much just like physical asset. There's a lot of, I mean, you can say this about any sport, right? It's like it's just not physical. There's skill in it too, but it's just, I think it kind of like marries the both pretty well. Where it's like, okay, I could see Keegan being like a crafty lefty, right? Even though he's not the craftiest of rookies right now, it's a skill to be an NBA player. Or, I mean, I think a lot of people see basketball and football going hand in hand. I feel like a lot of these basketball players, of course, could just go into the NFL because they're like 6'8".
There's the physical profile, the athleticism, and of course the work ethic. They're already in the professional basketball league, the preeminent basketball league in the world. Why wouldn't they be able to, if they could reverse things, put the same work ethic into being in the preeminent league of another sport. I see what you're
exactly.
saying. But like, who specifically? Because it's like one of the guys I think about. I'm like Harrison Barnes. Like, first of all, you watch Harrison Barnes when he was in high school. The guy looked like a freak. Like compared to all the people he's playing against, he's just this like big guy that's just running around. I mean, when you think about it, Harrison Barnes is like the 6'8" wing, moves really well. That's kind of a physical freak in a way. And I just feel like that guy puts on a little bit more body mass. I've got that guy at tight end.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Be killing it.
I think Fox could be like a running QB, the lefty.
He could be
Mike Vick. That's not bad to say.
On the field.
I just remember he I remember when he had that, or Harrison Barnes had that buzzer beater against the Cavaliers a couple seasons ago, and Fox had he threw like that 3-quarter pass from out, so he's like, yeah, QB1. That's like, I don't know, maybe not the arm, but I could see him just sitting in that pocket for a second, then a hole opens up and he's just gone. He's quick, so I could see him. I could just see him just taking off. And there's Fox. It's a 40-yard pickup. It's like, wow.
Fox is 6'5" with that kind of length and whatnot. I mean, that guy would be freaking awesome.
He's only 6'3".
6'3"?
Yeah.
And I think he's 6'5". He's long though. I mean, he's got.
He's long. But I see Sabonis more as a quarterback for the team, though. If I had to pick a quarterback from the Kings, it'd be Sabonis.
Yeah, I mean, Fox is the closer. He's the running back.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, in terms of how their roles translate. I mean, I was saying last week that Sabonis, though, because he's a pass first big that can also go get it himself. That in a lot of ways is like a running quarterback.
I could see Metu being like a Jimmy Graham. So he's like Metu, a tight end.
He's one of the best athletes on the team. You put him him as a goal line guy, like a receiver. He'd be very good.
Oh yeah,
get him in the air. Mm-hmm. Just get Mezzi for the fade. They call him Mezzi fade.
Mezzi fade. You could have Alex Len as like a left guard or a left tackle. I mean,
the tower.
He's a strong guy too.
He's a big guy, yeah.
He's a big guy.
But something tells me he'd end up like Mike McGlinchey. Did you see the 49ers right tackle end up parallel to the ground against Micah Parsons?
Yeah.
That was not a good look.
Matthew Dellavedova would obviously be playing cricket. He's from Australia.
Golly. Matthew Delicatessen?
Oh my God. Who else is on this team?
I feel like, I just, not necessarily, we don't have to stick to football because it's like, I'm just going to go Trey Lyles could do this. Like, he got a nice mix of athleticism and size. But like KZ Okpala, I could see him being a soccer player. Like a Zell out there. He just runs, he's just like athletic. Because he's not like super big. I mean, he could be a wide receiver. But again, like venturing away from football here, you get Okpala out there, which sounds almost like Impala, like he's grazing the field, I think that'd be great. Like the Okpala in his natural habitat.
I kind of like that.
Yeah. See, there you go. Huh?
I like it. I don't know. I mean, I only ever played basketball, football, and baseball, so my mind kind of just goes to that. I don't know this. I don't know the skills too much.
Did you play tackle football?
Oh yeah, no, I played 8th grade flag football. So, so my mind definitely goes to those. Maybe, why don't you say soccer? I'm trying to think. Like someone would be like a good goalkeeper.
I like the deli for the cricket thing.
Yeah, deli. I like that too. We don't have any big shot blockers, so I'd be like, I can't say anyone's like, yeah, just like a goalie. But
well, I feel like if you had like Davion Mitchell, like we said, would be a good running back, but maybe he'd also be a good hockey goalie because he's got that stoutness to him.
That is true. Yeah, he is.
I don't know a ton about hockey, but I feel like you just put him back there.
I think Davion Mitchell would just be a good
and he defends with his body
goals in hockey. He'd be a left wing. I think he'd be great. You ever ice skated before? Where you just pick it up. If he practiced his whole life, he'd be good.
If he just picked it up in high school, I bet he would have figured it out. Probably have a passion for it.
Yeah, exactly. But
Like I feel like Sabonis could be like a rower or a swimmer. Maybe not a swimmer, but maybe a rower. Kind of looks like
I
those
could
rower
see.
guys are
I
like
think that's
hella
a
fit, hella tall.
yeah. No,
And like
that's
Domas is
true.
fit.
I didn't think.
Um,
I think that's a really good comparison. Actually,
yeah, but Domas seems too nice to be a rower. Like rower guys are kind of they have a reputation.
I'm trying to think. I could see Kevin Herter being a soccer player. Actually, more than anyone, with the headband especially. I feel like he always has his hands on his side.
Who else? Like
Malik. I feel like Malik Monk would be a wide receiver.
Malik Monk could be a wide receiver, but he'd get freaking hurt by week 3. He'd have to be like a kick returner, someone who's like.
No, you're right. He is much more of a kick returner kind of guy.
He'd not be somebody you want to subject to a lot of hits.
No, that's
just send him over the middle. Who gives a shit?
Just throw him jump balls. And he just got hops and he's like very agile. Yeah. That's why I see him as a wide end. Oh yeah.
I got that air, and he just play the ball. He kind of be trash talker, but have a good sense of humor and confidence about it. I can see that now.
Yeah, that's a much better comparison.
Yeah, who are we missing? Who are we not?
I know. I'm trying to think. Trey Lyles. I already kind of said Trey.
Yeah, Lyles got that kind of football. He really has that skill set.
I don't know. I think that's everyone.
I could see Deli Deli could be a rugby player if we're gonna say cricket. I mean, like he's tough. I feel like
I could see that.
Deli just getting wiped out by guys twice his size, getting right up. I could see that. That's normal.
That's Deli. That's just Deli for you.
Wearing a scrum cap.
I know. I get tell to see Deli in a scrum cap.
I don't know why this conversation's so fun.
It's a good way to end it for sure.
Who are we missing, man? I mean,
I think Davis. I think that's it.
TD. I mean, he's
all right. I don't know.
Sorry, TD. No, I don't know. You know, TD. He can play in the secondary somewhere.
Yeah, so I could see him as secondary, maybe a linebacker even.
Yeah, he's so like. You give him the ball or whatever. He's just he's just after it. So I feel like he'd have a good nose for the football on defense.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, man. Keita could be the goalie in soccer for Portugal. Hitting his head on the crossbar.
A 7-1 goalkeeper. That'd be crazy.
I feel like he could do it.
I think I don't know. He's a little slow. I feel like he would just get killed in penalty.
If his reaction time was hella good, he'd have everything. But I mean, I guess
I don't think
about anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Like if reaction time was there, he'd be playing as the backup center.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have to be worried about being a freaking soccer goalie.
Exactly. That's true. His reaction time isn't there though.
But yeah, I think that covers everybody.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, the Kings play tonight. Technically tomorrow for us, but they play tonight for those listening today on January 25th. They play their last home game of the homestand against the Toronto Raptors. So Toronto's kind of fallen off a little, not really in the playoff hunt as much as they were in the Kings last faced them. So end it with the win. It's another winnable game for the Kings, and then you got that road trip coming up. So it'd be nice to close it out on the close it out at home with the win before that road trip coming up.
Oh yeah, you'll be on the road for a while.
Yeah, a long while. It'll be a big test then, but that's it. You got anything else to wrap it up with?
Well, I just like it because I'm looking at the schedule there in the second week of February when they come home for a second. They played 2 games in a back-to-back, both against Dallas. It's like they'll be doing exactly what Dallas is doing. They'll stop in, stay in Sacramento, and then leave. It's like they're a visiting team.
I know. That's kind of weird.
So that'll suck, but they'll be a good test. But yeah, close out strong against Toronto. That's a team you can definitely beat at home. Or should beat at home, I mean.
Yes. And I guess we'll see tonight. But thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, have a good one.